Christine Kaaloa, who is logged in all the way from Hawaii, USA. She is an incredible female solo traveler and is a part of Girl Traveler, which is a travel blog that sort of inspires people and influences them and like sort of breaks down a lot of stereotypes and a lot of fears which are associated with traveling alone. So we're here today to hear all about her experiences, about her views, her perspectives on travel, and on the several niches that it encompasses as a part of Star Talk 2021 Verb 16. So thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. We're all very excited to hear from you.
Thank you.
As the first question, I'd just like to ask about how you got into travel. What was the one thing that pushed you from a normal life with a normal job to traveling full time?
I'm not sure that I ever had really a normal life with a normal job because I started off as an artist.
Right.
So I think I don't think there was really one moment. Like my family has been pretty good about introducing travel into my life, whether it was my mom, taking me on trips with my sister, or my father, who would drive me to school and sometimes get lost and explain the lost is us exploring. It was just kind of like already infused in like my subconscious. I think that travel was a part of my path, as well as like going into the arts, where you're still exploring your path, how to make your career work, um, and all that. And I think what happened with Girl Traveler was just another segue of travel, was going from me loving travel and pursuing what I was passionate about, the arts, which already opened doors to travel for me. Because I believe that if you're following your passion, it takes you on the journey that is the one apart. Um, I was exploring that, but at the same time, when solo travel opened up, that became a new path, and that became Girl Traveler's path. You know, so it
That's
was
wonderful.
continuing on from that initial
Right,
beginning.
absolutely, ma'am. As we were discussing before, just before this, this entire meet went on live, when I mentioned that traveling in itself is something that general society sees as a mode of leisure or something that we do on vacation. But for you, it is a mixture of both. So is there like, how do you balance both of those sides? And is there like a certain set of rules that you follow when you're traveling for work that help you sort of maintain a grasp on the professional side of it?
Um, are there rules? Just keep the camera rolling for whatever action arises, um, because I think once I started traveling for Girl Traveler and it became not only a blog but then a YouTube channel, I needed to make every moment count of my trip, because at first I was completely funding my trip, right? And you can't keep traveling and filming as if it's leisurely. I mean, you can, but you're there for a short amount of time. You want to maximize that time. You want to make every moment count. So for me, it was also documenting my journey as I'm experiencing it. So as I'm going through all these emotions, then make sure I have my camera popped open, and explain that. It eventually just kind of merged into one stream. So I do consider what I do as work. And ironically, my vacation is my job. I think my real vacation is just to like completely shut off the camera and not do anything and just watch TV.
Right. That's a very different take, of course. Ma'am, I believe you were, you grew up in Hawaii, right? If I'm not
Yes.
wrong. Right. So, you mentioned like in the beginning how going to school with your family or like going to different places from Hawaii really sort of integrated travel as a concept with your entire life. So the point is, if you had been born anywhere else, do you think you'd have the same passion for travel?
That's an interesting question. Because I know, one, being an American, that we have a lot of privilege in that our passport is open to many different countries. And I know like other colleagues, other travel blogger colleagues, like from the Philippines or Thailand, might have a little bit more difficulty with travel. because they need to apply for travel visas and stuff like that. So I think definitely if I were born in a different area, a different country, my idea of travel would be a little different too. Being born in Hawaii per se, which is like this little rock of an island that's connected to the United States, but you know, it requires a plane and like a 6 hour flight. It changes. I think my idea of travel also changes because it's opening this gateway from this island into a larger world too. You know.
Absolutely, ma'am. That's exactly what I actually wanted to know because when you live in different places, your idea of travel is very different. I'm really glad you mentioned the concept that, sorry, the fact that Hawaii is an island in itself. So it feels kind of you know you can connect to a lot of different places at once. I think that's something that I felt, and I was really grateful that you brought up the same thing. The next question, I've been dying to ask this, but like, what's the best country you've been to, and like, what was your experience there?
That's so unfair. Everyone always asks me that question, and I try to play it off because as like a travel channel, I try to not be I try to be very neutral. I mean, everywhere I go is home to me, and I love everywhere I go. I mean, how can you not? But I will say India. India is at the top of my list, and that's because well, India and Nepal, because India and Nepal were the first two countries in which Girl Traveler was actually born. So that's where I consider Girl Traveler's birth is initially in India, where the solo journey began. And then Nepal helped along, soften the blow. And so I came to India again, where it was a little more rigorous.
Right.
But yeah, India. I think there's just so much to see and do there, and you definitely can't experience all of India in one trip. I mean, it's vast. You know that you've got different regions and different
Yeah.
states and different, like languages and cultures. You can go to the desert, to the beach, to the mountains, to experience snow, and there's just so much diversity there. And I also feel like because India is just so different in terms of an Asian culture or an East Asian culture, um, it the idea, I don't know, it's just been feeling like when I'm in India, it's more of an adventure for me, and it's hard to get out of my system. It's kind of like really cool.
It makes us really happy to hear that. Something that you mentioned right now was intriguing because you've traveled to so many places, and sometimes you travel to a lot of different places consecutively. So, is there ever a moment in which the cultural shock between two countries, affect how you approach the people in that country, or affect how you approach work? Because, say, for example, you've been to one country and then you see a certain culture there, or you go to the next country and it's a completely different sort of a landscape there. So does it ever really get in the way of your work, positively or negatively, and how do you deal with it?
Um, Positive or negative? I don't feel like it really does because it's you're never bored for one because everything changes so quickly, and it's like a breath of fresh air wherever you go. So you know when I come home, obviously that's a time for rest. Everything is going to be monotone. I'm going to do the same thing every day, potentially drive the same route. So when I travel, then that's like really the the adventure of passing through different doorways, finding different stories, finding how they're connected and how they're completely different. So like I did this one trip where it was I think for a few I can't remember like maybe a few months like 4 months or something I was traveling in India. I would like went to Thailand. That was my home base at one point. Um, to Taiwan, to Sarawak, Borneo. It was like all these different areas, and I was just going based partially on the cost of a plane ticket.
Right.
Um, and because they were so diverse, you could definitely connect. You could see how things were different. After India, when I came back to Thailand, which I love also, that's another country I love. when I came back to Thailand, I was just like, wow, it's kind of boring now because in like, well, it kept me on my toes. And then when I would hit Thailand, it's just like, so it's, it's, it's like a rhythm, and it's a fun rhythm. And like I said, it keeps me on my toes, keeps things exciting, and the stories keep changing.
Right, absolutely. But does it ever get a bit chaotic for you? Like, I understand that traveling to so many places with the career that you have must be really exciting and that you never get bored. But does it ever feel like, something gets a bit too chaotic? Because you mentioned that, your idea of a vacation would be just turning off everything and following the same route every day. So, was there ever a moment, in your travels in which you felt like, I want to go home? Does that sentiment ever, hit you?
Once, and that was when I did a 7-month backpacking journey, but it was not filming myself. It was
Okay,
just like a backpacking journey, and I was going from country to country to country, and I didn't know how to pace myself. So
okay.
I was treating it like a short-term vacation, trying to like do the itinerary all the way through, every day, and I was trying to hustle through these countries. And at the end, I felt exhausted. I felt um, homeless. Like I wanted a home, like I just wanted to drop my bags down and let everything sprawl over my bed. Um, so in that case, yeah, I feel like the problem with a lot of long-term travelers is initially you start as if you treat it like it's a short-term vacation,
Right.
where you're going to do as much as you can rather than pacing yourself, and kind of making certain places home bases that you can take your time in leisurely.
Okay, ma'am, like so far, like whatever you have been telling us, we didn't really know. Like, as a person who just wants to go on a vacation, like traveling is a vacational concept for all of us, as Shabantika mentioned. So, while you choose the destination you want to go to and like the country you are visiting to, so do you do your thorough research before like going to the place? Like, okay, these are the places I want to go to, or do you just go blend in with the local people and learn about the country in itself?
A little of both. And that's because for a long time I was planning my trips according to the cheapest plane ticket that I could find in part. Okay. Because Hawaii is pretty expensive to travel from as well. Coming to Hawaii, there's a lot of sales, but going outside of Hawaii, it's not too cheap. So everything revolved around the plane tickets. And when I found like these cheap plane tickets, I've had to like scurry online and I had to like do my research, um, and try and plan everything within like say a few days or two to a week. Um, I've gotten really good at that. But these days, because I'm on YouTube and it's about the stories and my audience, then it becomes a little more thoughtful. Sometimes I still do that, like last minute trip where I have to plan everything. And it's great these days, because you've got all these bloggers online, you've got all these YouTubers online, travel YouTubers, that they were already like creating little guides for you to kind of like do your research too. Um, but now as a YouTuber, because I'm going to go to these countries, I have to be a lot more thoughtful. That's where the work comes in, and I'm treating it a little bit more like a film production journey. So I want to come out with ideas that I know I can film, maybe collaborate with people, locals along the way, so that I can get the best experience for my audiences, as well as to live, or travel it pretty authentically. So
So, like, ma'am, also there is like, I'm sure pretty many of our viewers are also like, just like me, they aspire to go on a world tour someday and like roam around the world. So, what would be your one like magical tip? Like, yes, while you're traveling or before you plan your trip, you should definitely do this so that you get the best out of your experience.
that's a hard one. Um, the best out of your experience, I would say, know that you can always find a solution to any problem. And that is because, as someone who takes a lot of last minute journeys where I have to wing some of my trips and make things work. Find resources along the way because I haven't planned it thoroughly at times. Then finding solutions along, you have to know that you possess the ability to find your solutions along the way. If you arrive into a country and you're just like, oh, how do I get from here to here? You can always ask someone. If you're coming from the airport, there's always an information center, and sometimes they give you free maps. You know, it's finding these little resources, pockets of resources where you can use, like staying at a hostel. Well, I can always ask the hostel person, the front desk, like how to get around, if they know, or if they have recommendations for me to do things, or even other travelers. You know, if you come across another traveler, then you'd be like, hey, you know, where did you stay at last? Where's, you know, like when you're in Phnom Penh, where was like the you stayed at? You recommend it.
So, ma'am,
It's finding your
you just mentioned about like finding resources on the way, and earlier you mentioned like in your initial journey you also looked at the flight rates, because obviously these things, traveling is expensive, as many of us know. So, ma'am, how did you go about it? Like initially, when there was not much to start with, when you started out your journey, and you decided, okay, finally I want to become a travel blogger and things. So then, how did you plan out and like get the best resources with the least cost? Like, how did you approach this?
I'm using what I told you right there was my that one tip of finding resources along the way. You know, obviously you're gonna find the price the best price you can at home when you're doing your research. But also when you're arriving in these countries, you're gonna be like for me, I ask a lot of questions to people wherever I go. You know, I try to make I observe how other people are doing it inexpensively. You know, like when I was planning a trip to Japan, I was living in Korea at the time. All of my expat friends were just like, it's so expensive in Japan. It's so in your pocket. And so I was afraid. I put Japan off for a long time. But when I first went, I realized, oh, there's like $1 shop. There's like there's little what do you call it? Like at a certain time, food at certain shopping malls, underground shopping malls, get discounted. You find all these things. There's like if you go to the transportation section, like the bus section, they have like these little passes that allow you to unlimited travel 24 hours or whatever. There's there's always resources, and it's just a matter of being observant and looking. You know, because I had to do a lot of last minute trips. It's finding my information when I mean you can only and that's important to know because you can only research there's only there's only so much and after that once you get into the country you're gonna have to figure out the rest out from there. If something goes awry, you have to find your resources, and there are always resources.
That's really admirable, ma'am. I had a follow up to the same. How do you deal with the language difference? Like, I think there are a lot of countries in which, great population of that country does not really speak English. So, do you like sort of, learn up a basic part of that language before you go to a country? Is that how you go about it?
No, I just mime and gesture. That's a universal language. You know, humor, making it fun, and being a little silly and awkward when you like show someone the map and you go, or you can get around a lot of places with miming and gesturing, and you probably make a lot of like local friends and make like spread the laughter along the way. Because sometimes locals are shy to speak to you if they don't know your language too. You know,
Right, absolutely.
that's the best way to communicate. Uh, there's no way I can learn a language before I go, and I used to try to learn like little phrases. In the end, it's great to know hello, thank you. Where's the bath?
Okay, absolutely.
Those are three phrases I must learn wherever I go.
And when it comes to like scheduling trips, like for example, there are certain places which are the best to travel to in certain months of the year, or, during certain times. Like you mentioned Darjeeling, which is why I'm bringing this up. There's this hill that I'm pretty sure you've been there as well, called Tiger Hill. So that is only, the peak of that particular hill is only, extremely beautiful towards, I think, the end of November or so. So I'm sure you've been to a lot of countries which have the same kind of time restraint. So do you stick, like, strictly to those particular time restraints, or is it like I'll just go to this country at this particular time, regardless of that particular thing?
Pretty much. And it's I think the only time I've ever planned a specific time is when I want to experience festivals
Right.
and yeah, very special seasonal things. But other than that, I don't try to go at the peak season. One, because prices of everything goes up, from
Right.
hotels to not trains, hotels, flights. Sometimes trains are booked. It's all hairy, um, and I always feel like off-peak seasons are times because I have a lot more space around me and it's not crowded with
Right.
tourists. And these
Absolutely.
days, with everyone trying to get Instagram shots.
Yeah. So, ma'am, you've been traveling for like 8 years, if I'm not wrong. So, how's the journey been? So, when you started traveling, there was a certain way that people approach travel, but now with smartphones entering the game and everyone needs to sort of get the best shot. So, how has that affected the places that you go to? How is it now as compared to way back in 2000, I think, 2013, 14?
Uh,
Right. So,
uh,
how has the difference
I
been?
first started Girl Traveler, yeah, but I
Yeah.
started traveling before that. Um,
Right.
it's with smartphones. I mean, everyone's so much more savvy these days about Instagram shots. Uh, and so you definitely see a lot of Instagram, like people doing selfies everywhere. I was surprised because the last time I went back to Delhi, um, yeah, I saw so many guys doing selfies of themselves, at all these different monuments. And I know that, Indians, like they traveled their own country, but wow, they were taking more selfies than I was. Um, so I feel like people are a lot more savvy these days. Everyone's going for the shots. That means things are a little more crowded. If you want to get a good selfie shot, then you have to get up at the crack of dawn and schedule your photo shoots. So it becomes
Right.
that whole game of, if you want a great shot, you have to schedule your photo shoot.
Right, absolutely. And when you sort of made your journey over to YouTube, so you're a travel blogger there, but in its essence, everyone who posts videos on YouTube is essentially a content creator, right? So has there ever been a moment in which you've had a lot of demands from fans for you to visit a certain country or visit a certain place, or have you ever interacted with a fan from YouTube from a certain place, and they could have helped you out over your journey or something like
Wait, I I get a lot of people, yeah, requesting that I travel to their country. Um, and I get that. I mean, everyone's passionate about their country and they want it they want to see it on YouTube and being explored too. Um, and every country deserves that attention as
that?
well.
Right.
Uh, what was the other question?
Have you ever like sort of interacted with a fan, in a country that you've traveled to, and they maybe have come up to you and said, "Oh, I watch your YouTube videos, and I'm a local from here." So,
Yeah, and I love that when people come up to me because I don't know. I mean, sometimes people start staring at me in a strange way. I'm just like, what? And it's someone who's just, then they'll be like, oh, I watch you on YouTube, and I'm like, wow, I feel like a dick. Because as a solo, like a female traveling alone, I mean, when people stare, that becomes one thing, right? You don't know how to take
right,
it. But yeah, I've had a lot of people come up to me, and I love it. Like, one place that really surprised me, I mean, Japan, there were people that came up to me. It wasn't Japanese, but it was other travelers. Um, Another place that surprised me where people came up to me was Nepal, because I was just like, I'm roaming, I'm doing my vlogging thing, and I see people staring. I'm like, okay, that's normal. People are staring because I'm talking to my camera. But some people would come up to me and they'd be like, I watch your channel, and I was like, wow. Like I remember I went to a Momo restaurant because I was doing a Momo video, and I sat in this group, because there was no other space, and me and my friend we sat in this group, and the guys there, they were grinning, and we were like, what? And when it was just like, we watched your channel, and I was like, whoa, what are the odds that this could happen? It always throws me off when people like around the world see me and recognize me. I
So,
had
ma'am,
one
you
girl
just,
who
ma'am, you
saw me in
just
the,
men-
what?
you just mentioned about momos, and like that brings me to my next question. Like whenever I go out to any place, I look forward to having the local food of that place, and I'm pretty sure like going to any place or any country, there is different set of cuisines in all of them, and the local flavor is obviously unique for each of them. So has there been any particular country or any particular cuisine that you're like, okay, this is the dish which I want to eat once I go back to home. I'll look up for this particular recipe and I'll try it out.
It was the
Like,
momos. I had them first in Darjeeling. Like, sorry, not Darjeeling. I'm getting it confused. McLeodganj, Dharamshala. I had them there. I took a Momo class up there, and I was just like, I have to do this when I get home. I also experienced the Momo in Nepal with like tomato soup made scratch, and in the United States we don't make too many things from scratch. Everything's very instant. So I took those recipes and I tried them immediately when I got home, and I made them for like I think several weeks to months, because once I like something, I kind of get stuck doing it over and over again.
Momos are definitely something to, yeah, personally, I adore momos, and I think everyone here can, sort of agree with that because,
definitely.
we have a huge population of people from the eastern part of India in which, dumplings and momos, a sort of set of that cuisine is really popular. Personally, if I could, I'd have it every day. But that brings me to my next question. When the pandemic hit, the one of the first industries that was hit, like head on was the travel industry. So how was the experience then when the pandemic started? Where were you, and how did you deal with that entire year of, just lockdowns everywhere and travel completely shut off?
Well, it definitely was not easy. Obviously, like from my blog to my YouTube channel, everything's around travel, and I do cover food, but not to the extent where it was easily pivotable for me. So it
Right.
was really rough. A lot of my streams of income come through the travel area. Before lockdown, even at that, I was getting, like sponsored or like invitations to visit different countries. No, not different countries, one other country, as well as like campaigns. And I had a bad feeling from the very beginning, the moment I heard about the virus. So when these invitations came or opportunities came, they were hard to turn down, but I had a really bad feeling about traveling during that time. So I had to turn them down. And luckily I did. So it's not been easy in terms of lockdown, in terms of my business per se. That's been a little more challenging. For me, though, I really love video. That's another passion of mine. So it's easy for me to look at, YouTube as another pivotal area. But yeah, it wasn't easy. A lot of, I think, followers obviously were either scared about travel, frustrated with travel, or not being able to travel. Some people were very angry at the virus and anyone who did travel. So it became this very sensitive realm of, do I post travel content or do I respect the fact that people are very scared right now, and that I have to be more responsible about the content that I put out, and the message that I'm putting out. So that's where it became for me a little more stressful, because it's like, am I putting out the right message? Maybe I should delay my travel or delay my content, posting of travel content for a while. And then when do I bring it back? So
Absolutely. And now that the countries are, opening up slowly, all of them, like some countries are rid of the virus. That's incredible. But the point is that traveling is like opening up right now. So, what are your prospects in the future? What is the next country on your roster the moment, the world is mostly corona free?
mm, throughout the whole lockdown, for some reason, I was really craving India. So India is definitely on the list. And as I was telling you earlier, I'm potentially planning a trip or a group trip to go out to India. So we'll see. Fingers crossed on that. Um, I think Mexico would be an interesting place to travel to. And maybe it's because I've had like a lot of travel friends that went there during the pandemic. Um, I'd like to return to Indonesia as well. Um, Egypt. I mean, there's a whole world out there, you know. So wherever the next plane ticket comes comes through.
Absolutely. We'll end it on a bit of a, narcissistic note. So, what is your best, what's your favorite thing about India? Like, you mentioned it enough over the entire interview, and we're really happy that you did. But what do you like so much about India that it's one place that you want to visit over and over again?
There's so many stories. I mean, I know this is like the literary circle, but they really are. There are so many stories there, and I think that was the first thing that it really attracted me, is that right out of the airport, I'm seeing different types of people with different jobs that I've never seen before. Um, uh, you know, crazy street traffic with cows and bicycles and cars honking and all of, like, there's stories connected to all of this, you know. There are just so many stories, and I think that's one thing that really attracted to me. There's a time that I kind of want to open my YouTube channel up to cover more of the odd jobs that India has, because I think India has some really amazing like workers out there, you know, who help make society move. And even though they might be like smaller sectors of society, or maybe even outcast areas of society, I still feel like they all have stories that need to be heard. So I think that was the one project that I was hoping to do, but at the same time it was a really challenging one.
It was
That was
really, really nice to hear that. We hear about the stories from our grandmothers and grandfathers, but to see, great people like you appreciated in the same way that we have, it's like really heartwarming. So, with that, we come to an end of this session, and all I can say right now is that it was wonderful to interact with you. And if the next time you come to India, you start your journey in Calcutta, please, like our contact numbers are, all of us, we're all available. I'm personally home based in Calcutta, so you can just give us a call and we'll just point out great restaurants and great things.
okay. You better give me your contact, because I want to go visit there.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
can I can name the best street food vendors as well if you would like that experience too.
Or maybe we can do a video on it.
Absolutely, ma'am. Right now, we've come to an end of the session, and thank you so much for being with us. Rohan, if possible, you could end the live now. Ma'am, we just request you to stay back for a minute or two after this.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Okay. Yes, we are off.